had so much fun doing my Facebook Live video last week that I decided to push myself and do one again this week. And so I have decided that our topic for today is, are you a distancer or are you a pursuer in your relationship? So I recently went to a training called Emotionally Focused Therapy for Couples. It's actually based on Sue Johnson's work. She developed it. She's a psychologist, and I won't go too far into the technical stuff about it, but I wanted to share that because I think that's an important piece. And I'm actually going to link her book in the comments, so anybody who's interested in learning more about what I'm talking about today, you'll be able to have some information. And so there are generally two main types of people in relationships. Now there are obviously many types, but there's two main ones that really stick out for me in my work that I do in my office. I'm actually in my office, for those of you that are not familiar. This is one of the offices at my practice, Caring Therapists of Broward, and I had just did a previous Facebook Live video, and I said the lighting in this office is better. And so basically in relationships, I'm going to talk about a distancer and I'm going to talk about a pursuer and how those two people interact with each other. And then you get to answer for yourself, are you a distancer or are you a pursuer? And so, you know, the titles seem like, okay, I could probably pick which one I am and which one I'm not, but I wanted to talk about what each one of those means. And so a pursuer is the person in the relationship that pursues the other person. They ask a lot of questions. They over-express their emotions. They're the ones who are trying to get their partner engaged in the relationship. They're the ones trying to push the relationship forward. They're the ones that are expressing a lot of feelings, a lot of times, especially in times of fighting. And so that's a general pattern of a pursuer. The other person is the distancer. It's the person who tends to be more quiet, more reserved, who withholds their emotions, withholds their feelings in the relationship. They may experience all of those same feelings, but they're not coming and pounding on your door when you're fighting and expressing all of their anger and their frustration. They're the ones who maybe go upstairs, they process things internally, they deal with things very differently than, let's say, other types of pursuers who process their emotions out loud. They process their emotions with people. And so what ends up happening for this kind of couple is when there's a distancer and there's a pursuer in the relationship, during the honeymoon stage, everything seems great, right? And the honeymoon stage, there's a lot of different information out there about what the honeymoon stage looks like, but for our purpose, we're going to go with about 2 years. During that time, the first 2 years of a relationship, your brain is releasing hormones that says, I love this person, I love this person, I love this person. And after about 2 years, your brain starts to secrete different kinds of hormones, and you get into a different pattern in your relationship. It's not all about love. It's not all about lust. And so what happens sometimes is that these established patterns that happen in your relationship, the distancer and the pursuer, starts to create havoc. And so what ends up happening, we're just going to use an example of a couple who's fighting over where to eat, right? This is a very common sort of comical fight that many couples have. I see a lot of things on the internet, like a lot of memes that talk about, you know, people trying to figure out what they're going to eat. And so pursuer will say, where do you want to go for dinner? What do you want to eat? How much do you want to spend? What is our budget? How can we both have a good time? What do you want? What do I want? What should we call our friends? And it can be sort of overwhelming. And then the distancer says, whatever you want. And then doesn't say anything else. Maybe processing internally, maybe having experience internally. And so when that person, that distancer says, whatever you want, the pursuer perceives that as, that person doesn't care, they don't want to go to dinner with me, they don't want to They don't want to be with me, depending on where they're at in their relationship and where their life. They may go to all of these thoughts, and then they feel sad, they feel abandoned, their partner doesn't care about them, their partner doesn't love them, and then they start pursuing again. Where do you want to go eat? What do you want to, where do you want to go? Why aren't you answering me? Answer me. And then that that distancer goes farther and farther away. They really start to close up. They're not sure how to manage the emotions. They're feeling tons of things inside, but they withdraw, they withhold, and then they don't say anything, and then the pursuer goes back into her emotions or his emotions and starts pursuing again. And this is a pattern. When I do this in a couples workshop or in couples counseling, we look at it as an infinity sign, because the pattern doesn't start with any one person. This is usually an ingrained pattern that a couple has, where one person is pursuing, one person is asking the questions, one person is trying to get something accomplished, so one person is over-expressing their emotions. Could be at any point that this is happening. It could be with any kind of trigger. It doesn't have to be food. It could be children, finances, communication. One of the number one reasons people call my office to schedule a couples counseling appointment is communication. And while communication is an important component, there's not really a lot of research that shows just teaching communication skills with couples makes a difference. What actually makes a difference is allowing and encouraging each partner to express their emotions in a healthy manner, listen to the emotions of the other person, make it safe for the distancer to open up and turn to their pursuing spouse and say, you know what, I really want to go to Rocco's Tacos tonight for dinner. That's like really where I want to go. I'm really hungry for tacos and I'm really excited about it. Sometimes that distancer doesn't feel comfortable opening up, doesn't feel comfortable sharing. And while food is a very simple example, that can be used in any kind of fight that a couple has. And so what we do in couples therapy, and what I do in couples therapy, is really get both partners to learn their emotions. There's some primary emotions: anger, sadness, fear, shame, joy. For anybody who's seen the movie Inside Out, it's a great place to find out about emotions. I highly recommend that movie. And getting each party to really open up about their emotions, really share about how they're feeling, allow the other person to talk, express themselves, express empathy. I mean, empathy goes beyond just putting yourself in someone else's shoes. That's really understanding the experience of the other person, knowing where they come from. A lot of the times what that requires is taking a look at the family of origin work, where you come from. Did you grow up in a household where emotions were unchecked and everybody yelled and screamed in anger, and then you loved each other afterwards? Or did you come from a family? I work with a lot of couples that children are to be seen and not heard, that you weren't allowed to express what it is that you wanted in your for anything, what you wanted for dinner, what kind of shoes you wanted to wear. And so if you grew up in a family where you were unable to express yourself, how would you know how to do that in a relationship? You wouldn't know. And so that's why taking a look sometimes at where you come from, and it's not to blame parents. A lot of people think, oh, going to a therapist, they're just going to blame the parents. No, it's to take a look at what kind of messages you were taught as a child, and maybe that was important as a child, right? Of course, as a child, you have to learn. If you're sitting at the dinner table, out to dinner, no, you can't run around and scream and do all of these kinds of things. But maybe there's other times in your life where you have learned to stay back, learn not to express yourself. And so my work with couples is really getting both parties to feel comfortable sharing, both parties to be heard. That's the part I think about communication, is that people just want to be heard. They want to know, like, do you hear me? Do you see me? Can you experience what I'm experiencing? Are you feeling this sadness that I'm experiencing? Most couples come in, the number one expression of emotion is usually anger. I'm angry, I'm angry. And when we kind of peel back the onion and we look what's underneath, there's usually feelings of sadness, shame, inferiority, fear. Lots of times there's fear. I found with distancers, there's a lot of fear about relationships, fear about opening up, fear about going in 100%. With pursuers, sometimes there's a lot of shame, not feeling good enough, especially if you're constantly reaching out to your partner and you're not getting that love and affection that you really want in return. It can immediately bring you to a place of shame. And so I thought it was kind of a cool topic to talk about a distancer and pursuer. You can comment if you want below whether you're a distancer or you're a pursuer. If you would like to learn more about this pattern that relationships get into and couples get into, there's a couple of things that you can do. Sue Johnson has a book called Hold Me Tight. It's a great self-help book for couples. It's a good starting point if you're wanting to learn more about relationships and the patterns that go on. Another thing that you can always, if you're local to South Florida, Broward County, I have an office. I work with couples. I do this kind of work, this identifying who's a pursuer, who's a distancer, and really working on that, again, that infinity sign, that relationship pattern, and not assigning blame to who's at fault, but really getting down to the nitty-gritty of how can we fix this. I also have a team of therapists in my office who do very similar kind of work, and I'm also doing workshops with the Relationship Center of South Florida. So if you are not local, but you're really looking to get really big change, you're really looking to come in for a weekend. We do 1, 2, and 3 day intensive workshops, coming in, working on your issues, getting your pattern on paper, getting some solid tools on how to manage that pattern. I'll post links in the comments regarding the Sue Johnson book, regarding couples counseling with me, and regarding relationship workshops and marriage workshops. And I want to thank everybody for listening. And if you have any recommendations of other live videos you would like for me to post, please comment below. I do read all of these and I appreciate all the participation. Have a great afternoon.